Welcome everyone to this Lunch and Learn. If you weren't with us yesterday, just an explanation that we are doing a series of lunchtime sessions throughout this week for the Derby and Derbyshire system, but also to share widely to cover the One NHS Finance networks and roles that you can get involved with, just to try and bring them to life a bit for you, answer any questions, and see if there's any areas that you haven't heard about or might have heard about but might be interested in getting involved with. So I've got a few slides which I'm going to run through quickly, and then I've got a couple of colleagues who have very kindly joined us today to talk about their experience of these roles. And today we're going to be talking about the Inclusion and Diversity Ambassador role and the Health and Wellbeing Champion role. So Hafiza and Wendy have kindly joined us today. So hopefully going to spend most of the time hearing from them, but I am going to run through some slides first. Okay, so starting with the Inclusion and Diversity Ambassador role. So the I&D Ambassador role, this is an area obviously related to equality, diversity and inclusion. And the role is a quite important one in terms of forming a link between One NHS Finance and the work that they do in the area of EDI nationally, and then what's happening kind of on the ground in organisations, obviously in the Midlands and across the country. If you haven't sort of been on that area of the One NHS Finance website, there is a huge amount of resources and information, and it's always an area that they're kind of working very proactively on. So it's very important that they have people in these ambassador roles who can give them insight into what is happening in their organisations, both within the finance teams, but also, you know, wider in the organisations outside of the finance teams in terms of EDI. Challenges that people are facing, where they need help or where they're having particular successes, and that really helps influence what One NHS Finance are doing at a national level in terms of their kind of strategic direction. So a few bullet points there on kind of what the role involves. So as I said, kind of feeding back on what the community needs, but also feeding back on the impact that the existing programmes and activities that One NHS Finance run are having is very helpful. Helping to identify challenges and areas where people need support. And often what I&D ambassadors tend to do, especially when they kind of first get into the role, is look at the EDI action plan, and specifically the resource pack checklist that One NHS Finance have. It's just a good starting point to kind of reflect on their own organisation and the finance department in terms of that checklist, and seeing if there's anything where they feel like there's gaps or areas to work on, and then communicating that to their line managers and finance leaders and kind of moving that forward. And this is also part of the Towards Excellent accreditation criteria. So having an I&D ambassador in your organisation is needed as part of accreditation. In terms of who can join, anyone working in NHS Finance, it's just about bringing together like-minded colleagues so that they can share best practice and ideas around this area. So very similar to a lot of the other roles. The network, in terms of nationally, there are 473 inclusion and diversity ambassadors, and 55 of those are in the Midlands. How most finance teams tend to approach this role is to appoint sort of one or maybe two I&D ambassadors as their kind of main EDI champions. So you can see the numbers there across the different regions. So when you join as an I&D ambassador, there are quarterly regional meetings that take place. So in the Midlands, there are quarterly meetings that we run, and each regional network is led by a CFO chair. And they are very much kind of taking the leadership role in terms of the agenda and what the I&D ambassadors in their region are discussing and looking to do. ONF also provide ambassador showcase sessions where people can kind of talk about their own organisations and case studies. And like I mentioned already, there is a huge amount of resources and advice from ONF on the website, particularly on how to get started in this role. So things like checklists, quick win suggestions, and existing schemes you can look to implement in your own organisations. So being part of the network gives you access to, some of the more senior leaders across the region who are very passionate about this area, and you can get involved in the sort of high level national meetings and events if you wish to. So there's an annual inclusion and diversity conference which ONF run, and they have sort of national meetings as well. It's very important with this role that because anyone can join, you don't have to be a particular band or level of seniority, but you need to feel like you can kind of ask questions and feel empowered to try and drive change in your organization. So it's very important for CFOs and senior managers in the finance teams to be aware of who the I&D ambassadors are in their organizations, and make sure that those individuals feel supported and able to discuss things with them after they come back from the regional meetings, and have that kind of feeling that they can influence change. The ambassadors are also encouraged to link in with any of the existing EDI groups and networks in the wider organisation, which obviously for most organisations, this is an area which is very much part of HR and other areas in the organisation. So it's very much recommended to link into those. There are links there in terms of where you can find more information and where you can sign up. And like I said, we'll be circulating all of the slides and information from the whole of this week at the end of the week. Moving on to the health and wellbeing champion role. So I'm going to go through this quickly as well, and then I'll hand over to first to Hafsa to talk about the inclusion and diversity role, and then to Wendy to talk about health and wellbeing champion role. So health and wellbeing champions, similar in a way to the inclusion and diversity ambassadors in terms of they are a very important link between what One NHS Finance are trying to do in this area and provide in terms of support for finance staff across the country, and kind of feeding in what the needs are of their colleagues and the finance staff in the region. Obviously, it's about supporting both physical and mental well-being, and a lot of it is about raising awareness of issues, especially common issues that are happening for finance staff, and being able to signpost support. So like I say, they help ONF to understand how finance staff are feeling, and what areas people need information and support in. And there's a few bullet points there on kind of what someone who has joined in this role is pledging to do. And again, this is part of the accreditation criteria to have a health and wellbeing champion in your organisation. Anyone can join, the same for all the roles, any level, anyone working in NHS finance, and it's just about being passionate about this area, and wanting to kind of meet up with like-minded colleagues, in your systems, in your region, and even in other regions nationally. So for this network, similar numbers, 457 champions nationally. The aim that ONF have is to have at least one health and wellbeing champion in every NHS finance department in England. So for the Midlands, we've got 68 champions, and there are 15 organisations that don't have a champion yet, but considering there's so many organisations in the Midlands, that's pretty good actually, and there's a breakdown there. And there's quite a lot of support that you get, once you've joined this network in particular. So ONF put on training for new health and wellbeing champions when they join the network. There has been a bit of a backlog with their training recently, but they are being able to put that on again, and the Academy is getting involved with funding to try and make sure that we get everyone trained up. But there is standard training that everyone gets when they're new to the network. They have a suggested checklist on what you can do to get started as a new champion. They run wellbeing webinars, and they've got quite a lot of resources and guidance from different sources. and a dedicated channel on the FFF inside national Microsoft Teams. And then also on top of what they do nationally in the Midlands, we've started a regional health and wellbeing network, which essentially just brings together the champions from the Midlands for quarterly meetings or sort of mini events as an additional kind of level of networking and support. And there's links there as well on how to join for those. Okay, so that is all from me. So I will stop sharing. And Hafiza, I'm sure I saw you join. So I'm hoping that I can hand over to you to talk about inclusion and diversity.
Yeah, thank you, Becky.
Hi, thank you.
Hey. So, hi everyone, and just the brief introduction. So, I'm Hafiza Raja. I'm Assistant Director of Strategic Finance, and I work for the Midlands Regional Team. I've got 20 years NHS service, of which 15 years is pretty much in the Northwest region. Most of my career has been commissioning finance, and I've done a number of regional roles in the Northwest, Northeastern Yorkshire, and now in the Midlands. So it's been about coming up to 3 years in the Midlands. A lot has changed after COVID around opportunities, especially people from underrepresented group like myself who wouldn't have considered before. So it's great. So I want to just sort of talk about why I got involved around I&D agenda from a personal perspective, and then also from a work perspective, and inspiring others, and how we can make a difference in our roles, being a change agent. So being from an underrepresented group, female Muslim woman from Indian heritage, born in the UK, halfway through my career and sort of started to work and understand myself, thinking, what does it all mean? Like behaviours, unconscious bias, and even sort of for myself, it's still sort of learning about that and what that means in a workplace. So that actually got me involved. So from a development perspective, from a personal growth perspective, and then that led me to getting more and more involved with different networks and opportunities. And what I started to realise that I think that there's like an assumed knowledge, and that there's something about the openness, and the openness to share, the openness to have those conversations, people from different backgrounds, and how we can create that culture of inclusivity. And the more I got involved, so what I realised that there's something that I could get involved in terms of being a bit more open, that could be inspiration to others. But then it's also raising that awareness. So what then that led to is that I was finding, it's almost like there was like a personal growth element that I was going through a journey through my career, my leadership journey, and then that was taking me through to putting myself out of my comfort zone. But at the same time, the more I did that the more I wanted to get involved in the I&D agenda, but because of the impact it was actually having and the feedback that I was getting. So when I joined the Midlands region, personally, I'm really passionate about equality, diversity and inclusion. So I signed up for an I&D Ambassador. And as Becky mentioned, it does give you access to senior leaders, and you do get invitations to speak at sort of national conferences. And I talk about putting myself out of my comfort zone, talking here today and being involved with other programs and events that I've spoken to. It's still out of my comfort zone, but I do it because it makes a difference, and the powerful messages and the feedback I get after it. And I'm thinking, wow, I'm not an expert public speaker, but the impact it can actually have gives me that kind of encouragement to get involved more. About, I think, 12 months ago, I agreed to talk at the One Finance CFO Summit, I've the first time an experience where I'm on stage, being part of an EDI panel, talking about the work I've been doing around EDI in the Midlands region, and what messages that CFOs can take away. I think one of the things that we've got to sort of think about, whether you're a senior leader or not, or an individual, we all have a responsibility to educate yourself, have that curiosity. It doesn't necessarily need to be somebody from an underrepresented groups. And quite often we're hesitant to talk about some of the thought-provoking topics. And what I find is that being involved in those networks and working with a group of individuals, you learn from each other. It could be ethnicity, it could be neurodiversity, it could be wellbeing stuff. And the network grows. Access to senior leaders also helps you grow in your personal developments. It gives you opportunity to put you out of comfort zone. But most importantly, it's about that making a difference. And one of the things that when I'm in my career at the minute is that something I recently took away from a leadership course that I've been doing is that we are a change agent. Being in a leadership role, we are a change agent, and we have that responsibility to make a difference, to educate ourselves, to help others, to inspire others. And the more we get involved and that curiosity, the importance of allyship within our workplace, understanding the struggles of our work colleagues and what's important to them, creating that space for psychological safety. To summarise in terms of why, something I'm passionate about, so something throughout my career journey that as part of my journey, it's led to getting more and more involved in the ID agenda. And the other thing that I sort of started to do with my regional role is that influencing and leadership buying. So I work closely with Sarah Stanfield, who chairs the IND Ambassador meeting, and collectively to see how we can get that leadership buy-in on the IND agenda. And some of the sort of success stories and work I've been involved in. So as Becky mentioned, what we do is whatever topics we discuss about, whatever programs that and support that's out there from the academy, we take it back to our organisation. We sort of share with our colleagues and we use the sort of materials to raise that awareness as part of our finance staff session. We signpost individuals how they can get a bit more involved, access that support. And then also from a personal perspective, it also gives you the opportunity to get involved with initiatives. And just recently, I agreed to write an article about a female Muslim woman in a workplace for the NHS Midlands Islamophobia awareness session and newsletter. So as part of doing that, this was me talking about my career journey, talking about my experiences, my lived experiences and cultural sensitivities to raise that awareness. And that's also being shared with the One Finance, that's also on the cultural diversity website. So this is something about putting yourself out there, getting involved, learning from each other, using your leadership influencing capacity to see how you can make a difference, whether that be internally within your organisation and getting more involved in ways. So that's just a little bit about me in terms of my journey and I get involved and yeah, that's.
Thank you so much, Hafsa. Yeah, I mean, it's just I obviously, you know, have worked with you a bit and shared your blog as well on the Academy newsletter, and it's great to hear your perspective about how it all works, but also you know, a very kind of personal take from you on why you've gotten involved, and yeah, really brilliant, and I hope people find that helpful. Wendy, going to hand over to you now, if that's okay. So health and wellbeing champion role, if you can just, again, give us a bit of a personal perspective and why you joined and how you found being part of this network.
Lovely, thank you. And how do I follow that? That was really inspiring, Haviza, thank you. And just to mention, I'm also an inclusion and diversity ambassador as well. There's another colleague in my ICB who also attends these meetings, so she's tended to take the lead, but you don't have to be from a specific group, you know. And I think for me, I'm a naturally nosy person. I think that's what comes out in all these things that I do. I'm just very inquisitive, very nosy. And it's just the exposure to these things. So the EDI network, the health and wellbeing network, it's just about that exposure. It gives you that broader awareness of things. So it starts to make you question perhaps, you know, what you're doing in your own organisation or for yourselves, or a lot of it is pinching with pride, I have to say, with stuff as well. But anyway, a bit of a background for me. So I've worked in the NHS since 1989 as a wee girl, and I think health and wellbeing's always been, you know, something high on everybody's agenda. I think we're all very, very much aware, more so these days since COVID. And I think for me personally, my eldest son had mental health problems whilst he was in his workplace in not too distant past. And he was really well supported. And I think if he hadn't have worked for the organisation necessarily that he was with, which is a big car manufacturer, I don't think he would have got through as well in his day-to-day. And that kind of sparked me to think, you know, there could be somebody else in our team, in our organisation, who might be going through a similar struggle. And yes, we've got, as an ICB or as, you know, a CCG back then, we've got the networks around us and we've got access to things. I think it's just about that. For me, it was like a personal thing, just to be more aware. So if anybody in my team or anybody approached me during time at work and, you know, started a conversation that was heading down a certain path, that I was more prepared for that, I think, as well. So I'm also a member of our health and wellbeing group in the ICB, which we've got just locally. And we're not counsellors, you know, and I don't profess to be a counsellor. You know, if somebody comes to me with an issue, I'm not going to, you know, so suddenly, you know, give sort of medical advice or anything like that. But it's about being able to signpost, because you're more aware of what's going on around as well. So I really became involved, partly on the back of that with my son, but also as being part of the Value Maker network. So again, there's just so much exposure to things when you go to the Value Maker meetings, the Value Maker conferences. There's so much out there. The showcase sessions are absolutely fantastic. The resources through ONF, I think we're just so lucky in the NHS, especially in finance, to have access to all of this. And I think that's quite rare. And sometimes I think we take it for granted almost that it is there, and we don't necessarily tap into it as much as we should do. But I think, you know, we've all got to make use of all the resources that we can. But some of the things we've done locally with our health and wellbeing. So we have, in our weekly team meetings, we always have like a health and wellbeing, say an agenda item. We don't have a formal agenda, but we always talk about health and wellbeing. Most of it goes around food, to be fair. So meals out and things like that. So and supporting the local town where our offices are. So we go out for meals after work. We do bring and share lunches, another food orientated thing. But just so as we're getting together as a finance team, but not talking in a finance role, we're just talking of a lunchtime in a collaborative space. We do walks, so it's just some very simple stuff as well, you know, just lunchtime walks out together, which again, out in the fresh air is good for everybody when it's not raining or snowing. But just that people talk differently then when you're out going for a stroll or whatever. I went to a health and wellbeing showcase session, I think it was early last year, and they were talking about volunteering and wild swimming, which obviously wild swimming in Telford isn't really an option unless you go into the lake. But some of the things people would do, it's just those sparks of like, oh, you know, we could try something like that. Not the wild swimming when you're in there. These are people on the coast who went and did that. But volunteering, so we're looking to start a volunteering scheme now within Shropshire, Talbot and Wrekin. So the showcase session that was done for, I can't remember which ICB was, who'd got volunteering sessions in, and they went and did some gardening at a local hospice, and it was just so inspiring to hear how, you know, how they got that off the ground and how it made people feel as well who were part of that, giving something back to their local communities. So I think it's just these little nuggets of things and ideas that you get from the network, and the resources available to, you know, to help you think like that and just start things within your own workplace. So yeah, I mean, I love it. It's a highlight of my my months of the health and wellbeing things, you know, the quarterly meetings or whatever. But yeah, I just think we've all got to support each other, haven't we? You know, work's hard. It's a really tough place to work in NHS finance. It's not easy, and you know, we just support each other the best that we can.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, both of you. Very, very passionate, inspiring. So I am just going to stop the recording.